Hello everybody, my name is Dratnos and welcome to this Mythic Orgozoa video. This is from the perspective of my Elemental Shaman, but don't worry, I'll still do a lot of rogue videos on my channel, but this is my rating main this tier, so that's why that's the character that this video is from. Anyways, Mythic Orgozoa, 5th boss in Eternal Palace, where the difficulty really kind of ramped up with Ashvane. But starting on Orgozoa, actually I think it's a little easier than Ashvane, maybe. It took us, I think, less wipes than Ashvane did. The boss is all about a single target DPS check in the first phase, and a huge amount of healing that's also required in the first phase. And then the last phase is actually easier than the first phase generally. You'll notice I'm kind of running a slightly weird talent that a lot of Elemental Shaman don't run in very much content, Surge of Power. Surge of Power lets me put out 2 Flame Shocks simultaneously, which works out really nicely with the way these ads spawn. So the reason I'm playing that talent is so that I can put out multiple Flame Shocks all at once. And that leads more damage funneling onto Orgozoa. I do very little damage to the Zoetroids themselves. I only use them for Maelstrom generation with my Chain Lightnings, and to put Flame Shocks on, which gives me procs of Lava Burst, or Lava Surge, and which gives me my Azurite trait Lava Shock stacks, so my Earth Shocks do more damage, but all of that is single target onto Orgozoa. So that's the reason I'm playing this setup. Elemental's actually very, very good at damage to bosses on this fight. The top, few damage to bosses parses are all Elemental Shaman, so this is a very good spec for that. However, killing the Zoetroids is still something that's important to do. So the basic mechanic of this fight is a little weird. We decided to end up 3 tanking it, because we felt like we had the damage where we didn't need 2 tanks, but if you're very low on damage, you may need to 2 tank. It makes it a little bit harder on tanking. This is really a tank check, a tank mechanic execution check, because the tank debuff, the tank swap debuff on this fight is a damage taken decrease. So each stack of the thing on you makes you take 10% reduced damage. But if it gets all the way up to 10 stacks, the tank instantly dies. So the way it works is you need to get them up to 8 or 9 stacks, and then they need to soak huge amounts of damage that come out every time an ad dies. There will be a swirly on the ground that the tank needs to soak. And so you need to make sure that tanks are soaking those when they have high stacks or some combination of defensives. And then also you need to make sure that the Zoetroids are tanked close to the boss, but not too close to the boss, so that they can be hit by my Chain Lightning and by everybody else's abilities like that, by the Blade Flurries of the Outlaw Rogues, but that they're not too close, because if they get too close to the boss, as you can see right there, there's this red line that links them, and they take reduced damage and do increased damage. So you need to avoid that happening for too much of the fight as well. So that's the kind of the core mechanic of the fight. The other thing that's going on is these incubation fluids are being put out on players. You can see them across the raid frames over here. The boss will just randomly put them on people, and then every time the boss casts Arcane Current, it will target all of the people who have incubation fluid, and it'll do a Chain Lightning on them within 5 yards around them. If that Chain Lightning hits anybody else, first off, there's a chance that they'll die because it'll start adding a lot of damage, and second off, it will spread a stack of the incubation fluid to that person if they don't already have it. So you really need to make sure that you spread out throughout the room whenever that Arcane Current's going out. What we did to facilitate this is before we pulled the boss, we actually reset the boss, and then we all spread out in the room and kind of claimed a spot where we would spread to anytime that the Arcane Current would come out and we had incubation fluid. And then we just stuck to those spots, those positions, anytime it came out. It's a really worthwhile thing to do. So if you're progressing this boss, you'll notice every time Arcane Currents come out, I'm going to the same spot on the map. Everybody's basically going to the same spots on the map. That's because we went and we actually all spread out throughout the room, and we made sure that we were spread enough without the fight actually going on. And that way we can just keep going to those positions. So that makes it easy. The incubation fluid itself is a pretty serious dot as well. You can see if you're looking at our raid frames now, pretty much the whole raid has it. The fight phase is at 40%, so this is where everybody's looking to use health stones, health potions, defensives. In the kind of 60 to 40% part of the fight, you'll see everybody's health going way down, everybody's taking a lot of damage, but we end up being okay here. I'm using my Astral Shift here defensively against that Arcane Current, and then we also... It's important to use your healer cooldowns kind of when everybody's in the middle of the room, like Barrier. You can't really use it to cover the actual damage of the Arcane Current because everybody's spread, so you use it instead to cover the dot damage and to top everybody back up afterwards. And then once the boss reaches 40%, it'll phase, and you'll need to get downstairs to do the next phase of the boss fight. Some Zoetroids will usually be there spawned as well. There'll usually be a fresh spawn of those. Don't worry too much about those. They'll float down on their own way. But yeah, so a couple people do a jump over the side there, as you can see. That is not necessary. You need to be really careful because it's pretty reliable to do that, but if you mess it up and die, which you can do, even if you're pretty confident about it, if that's something that even has like a 5% chance of happening for you, it's probably a mistake to do that, and you need to be really careful. Because if you die doing that little jump there, you'll wipe the raid, and you have enough time to go the slow way, especially with priest life grips for whoever the slowest person is, and a warlock gateway. So my advice to you is, I know a lot of guilds actually ban people from trying to do that jump, because even if you can do it 9 times out of 10, it's not worth attempting, because you'll just wipe the raid anytime you mess it up, and if everybody's trying to make that attempt, somebody will mess it up every pull, and that is really bad. So, downstairs phase, everybody's incubation fluids have been reset, and the boss will once again start spreading them out through the raid. There are still the same Zootroid ads, which do the same thing as before. They drop the little swirlies that need to be soaked by a tank. They can also be immune soaked, although interestingly, not Cloak of Shadows. Cloak of Shadows does not work against them, but big immunities like Ice Block and Divine Shield do work against them, so you can use those as needed. So we're still getting our spawns of 3 Zootroids, but we're also going to get Naga spawns now. And there are 3 different kinds of Naga, and they each have a couple different things. So the Witch here, we have assigned to keep kicked. You'll see there I'm kicking it on the first cast and then sending it in. So I kick the first cast, and then I start kicking the 4th cast, the 8th cast, and every multiple of 4 thereafter on the Witch. You'll see I've set up a little, like I focused it, and I'm using my focus kick setup that I use in Mythic Plus to keep track of it. And then I also have a weak aura that anchors the cast number it's on, and it just resets going from 1, 2, 3 to 4. And then I just make sure that every time it goes to 4, I kick. And I also have the weak aura set up to play an alarm bell sound every time it gets to 4. And you see it flashes like that, so it's very, very easy for me to do. All I know as soon as I hear that bell, and then the next time I see it cast, I use my kick ability. There's also a Myrmidon. The Myrmidon just throws this lance at people, like you can see the Aqua Lance on Eve here. You just need to take that out to the edge of the room, and then it'll leave a Void Zone on the ground, and you just don't stand in that, so it denies a little bit of space. And then the Hulk is that big thing. It'll do a Ground Slam. The Ground Slam needs to be soaked by at least 1 person. It splits damage on everybody who's soaking it, but if nobody soaks it, it'll wipe the raid. So you either send in your whole raid to soak it, or what we do is we just have people alternate off immunity soaking it. Or big defensive soaking it if they're tanks, I think is something we've also done. But that's our strategy for dealing with that. And then other than that, the mechanics are pretty much identical to the first phase. You still need to dodge the Dribbling Ichors, although Dribbling Ichor is not a one-shot or anything, so it is survivable. It's a lot of damage, though, coming in with all the other stuff that's happening in the phase, especially if you have a stack of incubation fluid, so do be careful of that. And then, once again, just the Arcane Current spread happens. Obviously, we haven't preset our locations like we did in the first phase for that, but the same theory holds. Just make sure you're getting 5 yards away from everybody, and, fight handled. The fight, that's all there is to it. You'll see there's a lot of ads here. You need to not panic when this happens, because there's actually like 10 ads on the screen right now, but we're totally fine. This number of ads is fine. Everybody's getting some good single target damage from these ads, which is nice. This would be a good spot for old Subtlety Rogue. Rest in peace, that spec. And one thing I'd like to point out as well is you'll see, if you look at my buffs here, I've got 54 stacks of my Azshara staff. The Azshara staff is going to proc momentarily here, and you're going to see an insane amount of healing numbers. So pay close attention, all right? Pay close attention to what's about to happen. So yeah, here comes a Mist Soak. All right, one of the Zootroids is about to die, and you'll see there will be a swirly for a Zootroid Soak. There it is. That one's going to go unsoaked. And the whole raid is going to take a bunch of damage whenever that soak gets missed. And now my Azshara staff's going to proc. And that actually did about 3 million healing and 1 million damage on that one proc. So Azshara staff extremely valuable is the moral of the story there. Would absolutely recommend it for a lot of progression encounters. This one's a very good one to use it on, because you're very likely to get to 10% health before you die, because a lot of the damage is incremental and dot based. Is not like one-shotty. So Azshara staff, just a great thing to wear on a fight like this, even if it's 15 item levels lower than what else you could be wearing. That effect is kind of irreplaceable, and it's especially likely to matter in a progression environment. So that's been Mythic Orgozoa. That's been our strategy for this boss. If you have any questions, ask them in the comments, and there's a chance that I'll read them. I'll try my best. Like and subscribe. If you happen to have Amazon Prime, you can subscribe to my Twitch channel for free as well, twitch.tv/Ratnos. That gives me some money. That would be greatly appreciated if you're not using that on anybody else. And I'll be back with more Eternal Palace videos and more Rogue Mythic Plus content, maybe some Protection Paladin Mythic Plus content, and maybe some Elemental Shaman Mythic Plus content as well. And I'll try to have guides for some combination of those specs as well. I know that the Rogue guides are a little bit outdated, so I'll try and get those up to date within the next couple weeks as well. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.